On today's episode of the Wild Party Podcast, I'm joined by Stephanie DiPisa, founder of Solara Suncare, a wellness-driven mineral sunscreen brand born out of a deeply personal mission. Stephanie was raising 3 kids and navigating her own health journey when she decided to create a clean, effective alternative to the chemical sunscreens that were causing skin issues in her family. In this episode, we talk about the power of slow, intentional growth, the importance of safe skincare, and how she built Solara from her kitchen table to the shelves of Target, Nordstrom, and Whole Foods. We also get into the nitty-gritty of product development, marketing, and staying true to your values while scaling a purpose-driven brand. Plus, Stephanie offers listeners of the Wild Party podcast 20% off an online purchase. So listen for the code. Let's get the party started. Welcome to the Wild Party Podcast, where we celebrate the visionaries behind vegan, ethical, and sustainable business. In each episode, we'll dive deep into their journeys, uncovering the why behind their mission-driven business. I'm your host, Stephanie Lahart. Tune in with me for passionate discussions about overcoming challenges, innovative marketing strategies, and the power of using business as a force for good. So whether you're an entrepreneur seeking guidance or a conscious consumer wanting to support impactful brands, join us as we explore the stories behind the businesses that are changing the world for the better. Let's get the party started. I'm delighted to have as our guest today on the Wild Party Podcast, Stephanie DiPisa, the inspiring founder of Solara Suncare. Now, this is a wellness-driven mineral sunscreen brand born from a deeply personal mission, which you know I love. Now, the other interesting thing, which is she had no background in beauty when she launched this company, none. And now it is featured in places like Target and Nordstrom and Whole Foods. And it's really redefining skincare protection, which, as you guys know from my other shows, I have really talked a lot about. I'm a very fair-skinned person and I live in sunscreen. So when I was introduced to Stephanie, I was like, yes, let me chat with her about her business. And then they sent me some products. And I already warned her, I'm going to get a little fangirly. So let's just set it up there because Stephanie has already redefined my face. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful, and I'm really excited to hear you're loving the products.
I am. Now, full disclosure, Stephanie sent me free products, and I'm not a paid spokesperson, nor am I getting an endorsement for this, but I have to already say, to just preface this, I am wearing the tinted sunscreen, and I don't know how I lived this long without it because it is everything. I live in Los Angeles. You guys know this. Like, I don't walk out of my house without sunscreen on. And even though I feel like I've been militant my entire life about sunscreen, really, I was never like a sunbather. I still have quite a bit of age spots and sunspots, and I look down and many years ago, I went to a dermatologist, cosmetic dermatologist. I had some of that laser treatment done to remove sunspots. And guess what? I didn't have the greatest reaction. I actually had a really bad reaction. So my face is my face as far as I'm concerned now. So I will do everything to protect it.
I love that. And I share that similar journey. The difference being, I was a sunbather. I'm Italian. My mom gave me like olive oil, in my teen years way back in the day. So I am fully in correction mode. Obviously, don't go a day without sunscreen now, but I'm glad you love the fortune teller because that's exactly why I created it, was to help with the past damage and hyperpigmentation that I've done to my own skin. So I'm glad you're loving it.
I am. And before we get too much into the actual ingredients and what makes it up, because it is truly amazing. And I'm sometimes like a product is so good, I'm like, I can't believe it took this long to get something like this made. This seems like it shouldn't have been no-brainer, but no, let's go back because I already had said you had no background in beauty. And here you are heading up a global beauty brand now that's in retail markets, which is kind of what, every entrepreneur seems to want to get to is like, I want to start online. I want to get in retail markets. And you did it. So take me back to where this journey first started, to where you saw this gap in the market or just your life. And you said, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it started from a problem I had in my own life. The brand itself today is almost 6 years old. But on vacation about 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I have three kids, and two of them have really adverse reactions to chemical sunscreen. And my son in particular, we were using a very popular chemical spray sunscreen. I was reapplying, doing all the things that you're supposed to do. And he ended up in a bright red, itchy, burning rash. And come to find out, he actually, the chemicals in sunscreens don't work well for sensitive skin sometimes. And that was the case for him. And so, after digging in deep, talking to my pediatrician and the dermatologist, and then, way back in those days, there was like mom chat rooms and kind of getting on and doing a bunch of research, like I realized, well, this is really, really common for people that have sensitive skin, autoimmune, which we can get into, and things like rosacea, psoriasis. And so once I learned that that was a problem more people had, I wanted to find a solution. And at the time, zinc oxide sunscreen, which we didn't invent, it existed, but it was like toothpaste. So unpleasant to put on. It was heavy and thick and white. And so that's really where the idea was born, is just trying to find a way to do it better, for the sake of my kids.
Yeah, so anyone who's listening out there and is not familiar with the zinc oxide look, if you look back at the old photos of lifeguards with the big white nose, that
Yep,
was the zinc oxide. And the reason they used it because it was very effective against very bright, strong sun,
absolutely.
being on the beach and things like that. But as a consumer, just a regular person, you're like, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use the minimum amount. And here I am, a child of the 80s, which I've said many times before. We
Yeah,
grew up using copper tone sunscreen,
a
number
hundred.
four. Number four.
Lowest number we could find, right?
First of all, it smelled amazing. So amazing. I kept an old bottle in my cabinet for the longest time for nostalgia because I would smell it and
Wow.
it would remind me of the Jersey Shore because I grew
Sure.
up on the East Coast in Philadelphia, so Jersey Shore all the way. But it was number four, so no wonder I have H spots now as I'm in my 50s. But what you're saying really resonates, I know, with myself and a lot of listeners because we look at products on the market and we have a certain level of trust because when you see something on a shelf, you think in your mind, somebody must have approved this. It must be okay. But now it's like we've gone on our journey of really, being more, I think, conscious consumers and really starting to understand that we have choices. We can now look at products like you did and say, this isn't exactly what's right. So you had mentioned it wasn't just sensitive skin, but you also had an autoimmune issue that had popped up that really kind of took you for a turn. So do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Sure. No, that's exactly right. While we were in the middle of formulating, which at the time it took us about 2 years from the idea to the first product being able to be sold on the market. And in that time, I actually was diagnosed with Lyme disease. And I like to share that because that's really where this whole idea of ingredients and clean beauty really started to affect my life. So I started this brand, I just want a zinc oxide you can rub in. But what I realized in my healing journey through multiple, medical practitioners that kind of helped me get from one point of barely functioning to here I am today feeling great. I learned a lot about the fact that what you put in your body and on your skin, it does matter. And so while zinc oxide sunscreen is possible to formulate and have it rub in and feel good, what I was realizing is that there was a whole lot of other ingredients, not just the chemical active of the sunscreen, but also ingredients like synthetic fragrance and different fillers, preservatives, all kinds of things that aren't great for people that are really trying to choose a cleaner, healthier living. And so that's where the idea really took a shift, and we started pulling out some of those common ingredients and replacing them with things that I learned about on my own healing journey, things like adaptogens, which you'll find in our Lux collection that are like high-powered protective botanicals, things like nourishing oils and nourishing butters so that it wasn't just this drying out of the skin. So that's really where the formulation took a really big turn, and I think for the better.
Yeah, like I had mentioned earlier, I am wearing it. If you guys are watching the video version, you might notice in this particular podcast, I look maybe a little bit better than other ones because I am actually wearing the tinted, what was this one? The Fortune Teller.
Richard
right? Is that
Taylor.
what, yeah?
Yes,
Hold on, I
that's
have it
my
in front of me here.
favorite.
I should
Yeah.
just, okay. So I'm wearing the Fortune Teller right now in SPF 30. I have the light tint. Again, I'm very fair. And what really struck me about this, again, like you just said, when I put it went on like a moisturizer almost. It was very smooth. It was very even. It was very clean feeling. I didn't feel goopy because the other thing about sunscreen is this. If you don't like the smell or the texture of it, you're not going to use it. And that's really been a problem with a lot of sunscreens out there is that they do have this kind of gummy texture. They
Right.
feel very heavy and people won't wear it. In fact, I used to date a guy years ago. He refused to wear sunscreen. He's like, I don't like the feel of it on my skin.
Feel.
And I'm
Right.
like, dude, sunscan's cancer. And he's just like, it'll be fine. But I'm like, but that's the problem. If you don't like the texture, you're not going to use the product.
That's exactly right. That's
Right.
ex
So you were saying, you were originally on these mommy chat boards figuring stuff out. You didn't have a background in beauty. How did you start figuring out how to even create a product or where to source materials or what to actually use to come to this final, beautiful, amazing Solera, which by the way, I did read and I will spoiler alert, your children came up with the name and I do love
did.
that.
They did. They did. That's right. We listen, we're a family owned, we're bootstrapped. And so we didn't hire a big branding agency to name the company or to name the products. This is all brainstorms, friends and family. So they sure did.
Well, what I also liked about it is it's indicative of the product. You
Yes.
know, it's
Yes.
probably sun solar based, and it's
Right.
easy to say. People
Yes.
who pick very complicated names or complicated spellings
Right.
for the
Right.
entire existence of that brand or product will be correcting people.
It's tough. I know. I feel like we did get lucky on that front because when I first started the brand, and I can totally talk about that long journey of formulation and research. But this is my first journey into entrepreneurship. I didn't ever have another brand, another company. So we've learned a lot on the way. And that is one thing I can honestly say. I feel very lucky that we did choose such a good name and we trademarked it very early on. And if I were ever to do this again, I'd follow the rule of exactly what you said is like, remember, this will live on for a very long time and in a multiple different ways. Can you live with the name? And we happen to love the name. But it was a long journey to get to where we are today. I actually, in my previous life, so I say that's before kids, I worked in New York City, and I worked in public relations and marketing, and I did a lot of work with CPG brands, and none in beauty, but that background gave me enough of a foundation to know that if I was going to bring something like this to the market, it was something that really required the right people in the room. So I am not a formulator. I hired a cosmetic chemist that I was introduced to through friends in the CPG world. And that's really where my journey began. But I'm so hands-on. I do tons of research, and a lot of the active ingredients are definitely inspired by my own personal experience, my own wellness journey, or ingredients that are well proven on the market. You'll notice we tend to not jump on trends. We tend to look for the tried and true kind of clinical support to the ingredients that we use. But that's really was important to me because in the United States, unlike Europe, we are considered a drug. And so I could never make this in my kitchen, even in the clean beauty heyday when it first started. And there was a lot of founders with that beautiful story of being able to create a product in their kitchen and serve it out to the world. With a drug here in the United States, you can't do that. So it was through that chemist, and those relationships that we were able to kind of do the long hard work of finding a manufacturer. And then from there, the rest is history.
That's so funny. I didn't realize that sunscreen was considered on the drug level, that there would be those kind of, regulations in place, which is funny to me because I've done quite a few interviews and podcasts at this point. I think that's the first time it came up. So that's really good to know. Like I said, we do see products on the shelves. They have a certain amount of trust, but, are they going to work specifically for us? And that's the thing. Not everything works for everybody. So
That's
when you were going through your formulations with your chemist and trying to figure out what to really use, how did you start deciding on what was in it? And talk to us a little bit about exactly the ingredients that are in it. Because they're ingredients, first of all, I can say, which I like for the most part. And secondly, again, the feeling on my skin and just the results I've had in the week I've been using it, I'm like just shocked how good it is.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, no, we do a lot of research, obviously, but then I also bring other people into the mix. So if we get to something that we're really excited about, or maybe an ingredient we're interested in, but we're not really sure, I bring in experts. So we work with a lot of dermatologists, we work with a lot of celebrity makeup artists and estheticians, like people that really deal and are experts in skin. And so everything that we're doing is well vetted through those channels before we'll even bring out anything for our customers to test. And oftentimes we do love our real life customers to test the products and give us feedback before we finalize anything. And so that's really how we approach it. And then in terms of the ingredients, you're right. We tend to be very specific in the kind of actives that we'll use. And an active for sunscreen is what actually protects your skin. That's what they call it. The drug terminology is the active ingredient. We're very specific that ours is mineral based. So the main ingredient that's protecting your skin from the sun in our products is always zinc oxide. And that's intentional and on purpose because for me, the question marks that surround some of the chemical options that are available to us in the United States, I don't love the question marks. I don't love that they're trying to determine if they're endocrine disruptive. I don't love the fact that they're irritating to the skin. That's really where this started. And so we tend to stick to zinc oxide because most of our customer base is like us and they have very sensitive skin or some type of healing journey that they're on. And we're very mindful of that as we formulate. And I should say, I'm not against synthetics and I'm not against chemicals at all. Everything is a chemical. We just tend to look at each ingredient individually and the support that it has from a safety perspective. And then we choose kind of what we believe is the safest, best, and will give you the results that you want. Because with the results, you'll wear it every day. And that's kind of the goal. It's like that secret benefit to the products that we make.
Yeah, it is the everyday habits that really build a lifetime of good, is what I say. Because there have been many times where I didn't want to do something, whether it was putting on sunscreen or I don't even know, flossing before bed. And I do think to myself, in the long run, if you do this one little habit every single time, then
Yes.
the payoff is so great, and that includes starting a business too. So you did just mention that you're not against synthetics, which I am not either, but we are both against, and I know this from your packaging as well, as we're both against animal cruelty and animal products being included in, animal ingredients in our products. So I really love that as well because now that my podcast has been out there for a while, I get quite a few PR people pitching to me, brands and stuff, and they might come in on the sustainability level. And then we do research and we're like, but you use animal ingredients or, something in there. And as a lifestyle vegan, I cannot promote that. So I did
Right.
love that not only is it a clean product, it is cruelty free. You're Leaping Bunny certified, which
Yes,
I love because that is a journey, which we will talk about.
it
But
is.
not only that is, like you said, EU certified. So
Yes,
tell
we
me a little bit about that whole process, why that was important to you, and what that journey looked like to get Leaping Bunny certified and EU certified and all of that.
Yeah, so for me, when we launched this brand 5.5 years ago, it was in kind of the start of this idea called clean beauty. Over the last 5 years, the truth is that's come to not mean very much because the more people saw that as a lucrative trend, the more greenwashing that you see kind of out there. And so rather than focus on the terminology, we said, you know what? We don't want to make this confusing. I'm a consumer first and foremost, and I'm busy. I don't want to have to, try to decipher every ingredient to determine if it's right for me or for my kids. So the best way for us to do that and to really mean what we say, in my opinion, was to go out and seek the third party validation. So, who are kind of the leading folks that are credentialing what we're trying to say here? And in cruelty free, it's Leaping Bunny. They're fabulous partners. And you're right, you can't just slap that logo on anything.
Mm.
They do their due diligence to make sure that you're formulating and that you're manufacturing according to their standards. And the same goes for the EWG, which is one that I'm really excited that we've earned. We've earned the EWG verification, which again, people may think you can buy that. You cannot. It was a year-long process of having every ingredient its sourcing and its level reviewed by their team of scientists, dermatologists, and experts. So these things that we've done, they take extra time, extra investment, but I think they're important. They're peace of mind for the people that purchase our products, that they don't have to wonder if we really mean what we're saying in our marketing or on our packaging. So, and then the last piece you mentioned, European verification. So yes, so our Luxe collection, actually, all the products there have passed European testing, and I share that because Europe has stricter SPF testing than we do
Mhm.
here in the United States, just like they have stricter ingredient, usage. They remove far more ingredients than we do here in the United States. So when you pass those tests for SPF, it means that your UVA values are much higher, and that, kind of the number you're seeing on that front of the bottle or the tube, you can feel very confident that it's safe and efficacious. So again, it's just those extra steps that we're taking just to give our customer confidence that our brand is a good choice for them in their journey.
Yeah, so you were mentioning then, you did start in the marketing area. So you knew a little bit about how products were born and brought to market. And
Right.
then you started working with the chemists that you found and trying to develop this. But bootstrapping a company is, very difficult as you figure out all the moving levers and what you need to do. So at that time, then, how were you able to make that jump then from the corporate world with three kids now? And then to do a product launch, when you started out, was it with the intention of like, I'm going to try and build this brand that I could potentially maybe get into retailers? Or were you starting small thinking, I just want to solve this problem for me first? Like, how did you make that leap? Because the entrepreneur journey is not one for someone with
No.
who doesn't have a strong stomach. There's a lot. So tell me a little bit about what your thought process was and then maybe some challenges that you've had along the way getting to, again, these very beautiful products that are now in my hands. It sometimes it looks too easy, and I want people listening out there to know it is a journey, but there are steps that you can take to make it happen and kind of fulfill your dreams and the dreams of maybe other people like myself.
Yeah, no, that's right. And thank you for that, because you're not wrong. It is a journey. And I'll tell you something, it's not for the weary. And it's been a long road the last 5 years. And I think the blessing and the curse of all of it is social media, right? So for a brand like mine, social media is a blessing because we don't have the giant marketing budgets that even some of the brands we sit next to enjoy. So really it gives us a chance to reach out and connect with so many more people. The downside to it from a entrepreneur standpoint is that it does look easy, and oftentimes you only see the highlight reel. And the truth is, behind the scenes can be often quite messy, quite lonely. There's high highs and low lows. But in the end, I really hope that it will be all worth it, and it is at the end of the day. But I'm glad you shared that, because it's not all sunshine and roses here. But making that transition was really hard, because when I left the corporate world, I left to raise my children. I actually did take a career pause. I stayed at home with my kids for the better part of a decade, but I also was very lucky during that time to keep my toe into the marketing mix by doing consulting work. And that is really what allowed me to continue to kind of build the foundation. So when I was ready to pull the trigger on this, I felt like I still was in the mix. I still kind of understood how different marketing levers worked. I still had contacts I could reach out to for advice. And that's the one thing that I would say. If you have an idea, really don't give up on it. Get out there, talk about it. You'd be so surprised how many people, maybe even in your own circle, would be supportive or know someone that they can connect you with to learn a little bit more about an area that you might be interested in. And that's how it happened for me. Without talking about it to some trusted colleagues, I wouldn't have been introduced to my chemist. And that really unlocked a lot of knowledge for me that I didn't have. And then, kind of we built the rest from there. But yeah, one step at a time, one step at a time.
Yeah, that definitely is so important. I know a lot of times, especially now, we tend to, and I say we because I know I do this myself, is try to hide behind a keyboard. Like I'll just figure it out. I'll do some Google searches, and then I'll just show up and act like I figured everything out. When the real value is getting out there and networking, meeting people, talking to people, and just getting some input and finding those connections that you need because every entrepreneur journey is different. For as much as we want to all write a book and be like, this is the way it's done, it's always different.
Always different, and you never know when that next person might have just a nugget of advice that might be helpful to you,
Hmm.
or even if it's not an advice driven, what I found recently is just knowing that there are other people that can relate to the experience that you're having because it can be lonely. In this long journey of entrepreneurship, it can oftentimes be lonely because you have to prioritize, the company over maybe some other things and just knowing that it's not all sunshine and roses for everyone else is also comforting, that if something's not going right for me right now, it's not the end of the world. There's a good chance someone I know within my circle of entrepreneurs has definitely been through the same thing and maybe has some advice to share. So for me, that's comforting.
Right. So when you did launch it, did you just launch the brand online or to friends and family, or how did it first start?
Yeah, so we launched originally with just a couple of products in our Luxe collection, which now we have two collections, but we only had the Luxe collection. We had a couple of beachwear type products. And we did launch online, but I'll be honest with you, I'm in my mid 40s. So for me, the social media aspect didn't come as natural as I wish it did, or I wish I had a better thought through all those years ago, because I think bringing people along your journey behind the scenes would have built a more robust community to kick off. But I that wasn't my comfort zone. And so when we launched, we turned that website on. And then luckily at the time, it was right before COVID. So there were a couple of trade shows that Beauty Independent put on called Indie Beauty Expo. And we attended two of those. And we were so fortunate that we had the most amazing experience. We met buyers from all realms of retail, and we kind of got off to the races pretty quickly, at least relationship building. And we launched in Neiman Marcus not long after that, and it grew from there until the world shut down. And then we had to revamp a little bit. But those relationships that I built through those trade shows were relationships that even years later, we launched in Blue Mercury, and I had met them back in 2019 and early 2020. We didn't launch there for 3 years.
Mm.
So those relationships were ongoing, and proved to be very, very fruitful for us.
That is such a good point. It's not always just about the immediate sale, the immediate order. Some relationships will take longer. And, it's definitely those ones that you don't really know where they're going to land. I really liked hearing that you did take part in some industry trade shows. I find them so helpful and just, productive, even in my business, no matter what it's been. I'm always a big fan of going those to conferences and things like that. Again, you build those relationships, you find out new information, and it can really help you along the way.
Right.
Instead of like, again, hiding behind the little keyboard and just being like, I just launched. But as far as the marketing, so it's interesting that you said, in the beginning, you didn't really share the story and take people along. It's never too late to do that, Stephanie. You could
That's
certainly do
right.
it now. In fact,
No,
we're
I do
doing it
it
now with this
all the
podcast so
time.
people can get more of a behind the scenes. And that really does resonate with customers and audiences because you can then see the thought process behind it. So not everything feels like a money grab. Like you just
Correct.
made this product because you want to make millions of dollars. And yes, we launch businesses because we want to support ourselves and our families.
Right.
However, to hear the thought behind it and the thoughtfulness, resonates with a lot of people. So speaking of the thoughtfulness, one of the things I really, really loved about the what is it, the fortune teller when I put it on,
Yeah. Yeah.
is that this one says brightens and balance.
Yes.
I loved potentially that you could help repair some of my damage.
Yeah,
Please
that's our
talk to me a
goal.
little bit about how these formulas actually improve your skin, not just ward off the damaging rays of the sun, which, by the way, people listening, please know you also get sun damage even when it's very cloudy out. So don't think cloudy days are a free pass.
This is
Sunscreen all the time.
go sunscreen all the time. Listen, I'm a huge fan of natural vitamin D, but I do agree, especially for the face. Obviously, it's the number one way to protect against skin cancer. So that it's of the utmost importance to wear it every day. But the truth about sunscreen is it does so much more than that. So it's also protecting against those daily environmental aggressors that can cause premature damage, hyperpigmentation, and dark spots, like we've talked about. And so, if you're spending all this money and time on this beautiful routine of skincare, but you're not using your sunscreen, you're not protecting all the good work that you're doing. And so, it really is the most important step of the skincare routine. And so, when we formulate our face products specifically, but we're doing it for body too, we're really looking to solve a problem. So, yes, of course, the sun and the environmental aggressors, but also the issues that prolonged sun exposure can cause. So, hyperpigmentation being one. So, I can give you that example with the fortune teller. We're using ingredients like two forms of vitamin C. We're using adaptogenic botanicals that help address, like licorice root, underlying dark spots, so that when you're using it every day, which we want people to do, you're seeing the results. So, it's not just sun care, it's skincare, and it's really meant to complement all the other things that you're doing for your skin. We didn't want it to be that last step where you're like, oh, I don't want to put this on. We want it to be the step where you're like, well, I know if I wear this, my skin's going to be looking really good in a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks from now. It does take time, but yeah, so that's our goal, is to get you to want to wear it every day.
Well, I did immediately dive into the tinted sunscreen one, Fortune Teller,
Mhm.
because I am at an age of my life where I don't feel the need to have a full face of makeup every day.
Hey,
But I do like skin, a little bit of skin coverage, obviously sunscreen. I like that it had a little bit of tint because it evened me out. Like I said, I have sunspots. It's just
yep,
what has happened to my skin, even though I felt like I was being rather protective.
yep.
But with that said, so you have a few different products. I haven't opened them on. So tell me, what is the difference then between like the Good Karma and the Fortune Teller? Because the Good Karma says it is a dry oil. What does
Mhm.
this mean to me?
Yeah, so this is a totally different format. So this is mostly perfect for body. You can absolutely use it on your face. But the purpose of this one is actually to have a sunscreen that you want to wear on your body every single day. This is not for the beach. This is not for the pool. So you're going to get a very lightweight texture because it doesn't have to hold up to seawater or chlorine. And it almost is just like a regular body oil. It's just you're getting the secret benefit of SPF. And I'm glad you mentioned this one. I'm particularly proud of this because there is no other mineral only body oil sunscreen on the market. We are the first to create this and bring it to the shelf. It's kind of our philosophy to want to bring products to the shelf that our customers are asking for or that don't already exist. We don't need more of the same. And so that's really was the inspiration behind this product. And it smells so delicious, like a summer at the Orange Grove in Sicily, and it's so good for your skin. It's nourishing and hydrating, but it also protects. And so this one's become a really fast seller for us. But yeah.
Okay, if you guys are watching the video, again, I told you I was going to fan out. So I just actually opened up the I'm sorry, which one? Good Karma.
Yeah.
As you're describing it, because I wanted to experience all that.
Yeah.
And it's everything you said. It is a
Smells so good,
Tuscan
right?
summer. It is orangey. It is
It
I
is.
mean, the texture itself
Yeah.
just on my skin is so good. I was like, oh my goodness.
Oh, that makes
This
me
is
so
lovely.
happy. Thank you. Yeah, we've won a few awards, for these products, which I'm so excited about because it just validates that there is a place for it in the market and that people really are enjoying it. And so, like I said, our goal here is to create products that you almost forget are sunscreen, that make you want to wear it all the time because you should be, but also give back to your skin because me with my sensitive skin, my son, and my husband has psoriasis, there are all these things that we put on our skin that can irritate and disrupt. And our goal is to have sunscreen not play that role. And that's why we're very intentional with how we formulate. And it's why we don't have 90 products on the shelf. We're very intentional with creating things that we think will solve a need. Um, to the community.
Absolutely. And again, if people don't like the texture or the smell, they're not going to use it. So I did
Right.
mention already that you're already in retailers and you had mentioned Nordstrom initially. You are in Target, you're in these big, establishments. How did you make that connection then to go from we're selling on a website to we can now fulfill these larger orders? What did that look like?
Yeah, so it was a steady progression. And I've learned a lot too. We made some mistakes in the beginning and that we're, definitely not going to make again. But that's the one thing is, when you're starting something like this and retailers start to get really excited for your brand, you want to say yes to everything. You want to be everywhere, do everything. What I've learned is that, in our particular situation where we wanted to remain bootstrapped and family owned for as long as we can, you can't say yes to everything, right? Because you do end up then on the back end with either inventory challenges or you just can't support all the marketing and other elements that go into being in retail. So for us, we've tried to be very slow and steady with the retail partners that we, work with, but we've grown over the years and our Go collection is enjoying a significant distribution at Whole Foods. We're on Target.com with that collection, lots of surf shops and boutiques. And then, the Luxe collection is a completely different formulations. They're those high powered ones that we've been talking about. And so, we're doing extremely well with the folks over at Blue Mercury. They're fantastic retail partners. So is Neiman Marcus. We're in loads of clean beauty, where you'd expect to see our products like Beauty Heroes and the detox market, like the real powers in the clean beauty space, and then a bunch of spas. And so it's taken, we're entering our 6th year. So it's taken that amount of time to do things right, to make mistakes, to kind of get the wheels back on the cart and focus on the right path forward for the brand. And for me, that means a curated partnership that we know we can support in all the right ways. So it's
Yeah,
been
definitely. The partnerships are really everything. Again, like we said, making those connections and then, really nurturing that relationship and seeing where it could go. But
right.
also, making sure that you have a product that people are interested in, which clearly, sunscreen, everyone should be interested in. So,
Right.
along the way, then, what really can you give us one example of something that, maybe you wish you knew at the beginning that you had to learn along the way, but now you're like, yes. I'm glad I went through that because now I'm able to do this next step.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. Do we have a few hours? Like I have a whole bunch of like, hard lessons that we've learned. Because we're talking about retail, I'd say that's a big one. That's a really, really big one. Because it takes a lot of time, love, attention, and luck, to get into these bigger retailers. It's a completely different story to stay there. And
Mm.
that's the one thing that I think I can't emphasize enough. And it's something that we've learned in great ways and in hard ways. That if the world doesn't yet know about your brand and you're not a household name, you have to work extra hard to drive someone to that shelf and to have them choose you over perhaps the heritage brands that can spend a lot more money on awareness and marketing. And so that's the one piece that I can say, I wish I knew more in the beginning. I perhaps would have been slower and steadier with entry into some of the retail that we're in and waited maybe till we were a little bit bigger. But hindsight is 2020. And at the end of the day, now that we know that, it's allowed us to make our current retail relationships as strong as they can be. And also knowing that not every partner is the right partner for your brand. So while it sounds like a household name retailer, maybe it's not the right place for my products. We are serving a very niche audience, a big one though. It's growing significantly. The number of people that are choosing mineral sunscreen, but 5 or 6 years ago, that wasn't the case. So sunscreen hadn't yet had its moment, and mineral sunscreen was still kind of like you got the side eye. So there's a lot of education to be done, and that can lay the foundation for a stronger retail presence. But the last piece to that would just be paying attention to your direct to consumer. So not always going for that shiny object of retail, but remembering that your customer shops on your site too. And that's a customer that you can cultivate a one-on-one relationship. And for me, that's really important because that's how we're determining what products we're making next or what we want to do better. We're listening, and we can do that through our own channels versus at retail.
You're exactly right. A lot of times being in a retail establishment, the brick and mortar, traditional heritage, might be the shiny golden ring that we kind of emulate and say, that's the gold standard. That's where I need to be. But is it really right for your brand? And again, when you're scaling, like you said, some partnerships are just, especially in the beginning, are not going to be where you want to be, especially when we're in the realm of sustainability. I mean, I've talked to many, entrepreneurs, business owners that are just starting out that refuse to be in specific locations or retailers, which I'm not even going to mention because I'm not going to give them airtime because they're like, I don't agree with their business practices or I don't agree with this. And if you're truly trying to be a brand that changes the world and have some kind of sustainability aspect, you really have to think about the whole picture along the line. Like, what does it mean for not only my product, but for the world where this would be received? So again, having the online space, online shopping is key. And with that said, Stephanie, before I lose you, please tell everyone who is listening and watching the video where they can find you online so they can experience these beautiful products, which again, can I please say thank you for sending me these to try because I
So
love them so much and I can't wait to give them to my friends and family also as gifts because you created a customer for life, girl. You really did.
Oh,
I love
thank
this. I love this so
you.
much.
That makes me so happy. That's our goal. We want to create things that people love. So every time I hear that, it always makes my day. So thank you.
So tell us where our audience can find you online. Give us that website.
Yes, it's www.solarasuncare.com. And our Instagram and TikTok handles are the same. They're at Solara Suncare. And we do also have an exciting promotion for all of your listeners. With code WILDPARTY20, you can get 20% off of your first order at solarasuncare.com. So we'd love to share that with you. We'd love more Wild Party listeners to join our Solara family.
Thank you so much. That is so generous of you. I know people will be super excited to try it because truly, I have grown an audience of what I call the conscious consumers, people that
Yeah.
are looking at their products and services and saying, is this what I should settle for? And the answer is no, because we're going to
No,
figure out better ways to do it. So with that said,
these are
Stephanie,
our
thank you.
people.
Thank you so much for being on the show. You have taught
Thank
me so
you.
much. I've really enjoyed talking to you. And thank you again for the products. I'm enjoying them so much. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Likewise, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Wild Party Podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or a professional who would like to be on this podcast, please visit BoomTownMarketing.com and click on podcast. We believe that every business has the potential to change the world for good, and we want to support our community to help make the world more ethical, compassionate, and sustainable for all future generations to come. And if you're looking to build your business, no matter what level you're at now, request your free marketing consultation at BoomTownMarketing.com and click Get Started.